All right, welcome back to the State and Local Sports Show. I'm here with Mark Tennis, co-founder and editor of CalHighSports.com. We are nearing the end of high school basketball's regular season, and most recently on Saturday, the St. Mary's girls basketball team, ranked number one in the nation by outlets like ESPN and USA Today, earned its 50th consecutive win, dating to December of 2014, and against a good team in Bishop O'Dowd of Oakland. Those 50 consecutive wins, taking a look at Mark and Cal High's state record book, is 10th all-time in state history. They actually surpassed another San Joaquin County team. The Ripon Christian girls won 49 from 1987 to 1989. This run by St. Mary's with this core group of players is getting pretty extraordinary now. I mean, your thoughts from a historical perspective as you see them kind of climbing the ladder to places even that program hasn't seen before.
Well, the historical context is in the other win streaks on the list. There was no open division, and they're winning in the open division. So if they can win a second straight open division title, that's going to be more impressive than any number that they have, other than any kind of win streak number, which I think it would be 60. You figured out if they run the table. To do it in the open division is where it really stands out. And of course, they also won the Arizona Tournament of Champions this year, and the other tournament they were in back east. But they've got a rough road ahead of them. Northern California this year, for maybe the only time in long time memory, maybe 10 or 15 years, the best teams are in the north in the open division, not in the south, which is very strange. But that's definitely the case with Miramonte and Archbishop Mitty, especially those two. And in the south, it could be anybody in the final. Who knows?
Next week, the San Joaquin section playoff brackets will be released, I believe, on Thursday. Several potential number one seeds in those. We've got the St. Mary's girls in Girls Division 1. The Western Ranch boys certainly have a good shot at the number one seed in Boys Division 3 should they win out. Also, Brookside Christian for Girls Division 4. They really peaked of late. They have an upset against Pinewood to their credit. They're very up there, especially for the section. You just released something on Cal High about just the fluctuations of state basketball rankings. How, I guess, frustrating or kind of interesting and intricate is that as you guys kind of analyze things from a statewide perspective?
Well, and every year previously, we've tried to have divisional rankings out around the middle of February, right before the section playoffs begin, so people could sort of forecast where teams are going to be located, who's the favorite, that kind of thing. Well, the various different section playoffs are now very fluid in that you don't even know really what division certain teams are going to be in, so it's really hard to forecast who's going to be in what division. In the southern section, for example, they have an open division in the southern section as the top 16 teams. Now, when you lose in the open division of the southern section, you're going to bounce back down to a state division. Last year, the teams bounced back down to their enrollment divisions. Sierra Canyon girls, for example, bounced back down to Division 4 and ended up beating Brookside Christian in the state final. Well, this year, it's different. The southern section teams that lose in the open division are going to bounce back down to just Division 1. They're not going to go back to 4 and 5 and 3 or whatever. So it's a lot different. So it's weird because you look at the southern section teams and you're going to kind of forecast which ones are going to win their first game and then lose and then drop back down, and what division do they go into. And then you don't even know in San Diego which ones are going to be in which divisions. And the same thing in the CCS, which has its own open division. So until the actual various different playoff pairings come out, which will be after this weekend in some parts of most of the state actually, then you can really start to focus in and see more of a roadmap, or more of an overall picture of who the top teams are and who might win in certain divisions around the state.
Looking back real quick to that St. Mary's run, if they were to win out, of course it's a big if, it's a tough road to get to 60 wins. That would be the 7th longest streak all time, and potential to expand upon it next year. They graduate some key players and guards, Kat Tudor and Michael Caton, among others, but you also got Akira DaCosta, the leading scorer and rebounder, will be back as a junior forward. Najee Murray, their top three-point shooter, at least so far this year, will be back as a senior guard. And Sierra Smith, their point guard, really kind of the thing that makes that team tick that might not show up on the stat sheet too much. She'll be a senior next year, too. So they could keep chasing the record, which is Riverside Poly, which is 84 straight wins. It looks like back in the 1980s. Super Bowl 50 on Sunday. The game itself, nor the playing service wasn't so super. In fact, I thought the highlight was Lady Gaga's national anthem. That was really well done. I know not a high school perspective, just your thoughts as a football fan on Super Bowl 50 and everything that happened.
Well, it was it was defense for the Denver Broncos, and they had Denver had 8 guys from California. Carolina only had 4. So from that perspective, I kind of liked it.
Big fumble recovery for De La Salle's T.J. Ward.
T.J. Ward had an interception. He also had
yeah.
a fumble recovery. Malik Jackson from Birmingham down in Southern California scored the touchdown on the fumble recovery, and then C.J. Anderson from Vallejo Bethel got a touchdown for Denver running the ball. So it was a pretty good showing by the California players on the Broncos. So from that perspective, it was pretty good. I mean, the game itself, yeah, it was kind of ugly a little bit, but Carolina was in the game. It was still 16-10 in the fourth quarter, and they have the ball, and there's certainly the chance. You didn't think they were going to do much against that defense, but hey, they were one play away from going ahead 17-16. So they kept it interesting right until about 3 minutes to go in the game. So from that perspective, I thought it was a very good game, a very interesting game, and there were a lot of good storylines from a California perspective.
This game was competitive to the end, like you said. It seems like every time that number one ranked defense gets in there, they win, and it's ugly. I mean, not so much with the score this time. 2 years ago, that was the Seahawks beat the Broncos by 35. I mean, the first play from scrimmage that game was a safety on a bad snap to Peyton. You look back further, tougher Raiders fans here, when they played Tampa Bay, that game was over before it began. Even Ravens-Giants back when Ray Lewis was Super Bowl MVP, it was tough to watch. So it's one of those where it's really impressive to see, but it's not necessarily the best spectator sport.
Well, even last year, Seattle had the number one defense, and really they should have won the game if it weren't for kind of a weird call at the end.
Yeah. Just give it to one of the best 1-yard rushers of all time, but that's okay. Looking at potential future Super Bowls, of course, a handful of guys from the area playing in the NFL. This year, Mini Silatolu, the offensive lineman from West, would have been with the Panthers active in this game had he not suffered a season-ending injury earlier in the year. Carolina, of course, a lot of great young players. They could be right back there, and he could be a starter. He actually started a couple of games here. He could be in the big game. You look over at Indianapolis, Tracy Hyde's Matt Overton, the long snapper for that team, also does a nice job tackling when he needs to on special teams. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in the world when healthy in Andrew Luck. It's easy to see them kind of climbing the ladder in the AFC, especially with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning aging as they have. You got other guys. You got Julius Thomas from Tokay at Jacksonville, Brandon Cooks from Lincoln in New Orleans, Doug Martin from St. Mary's in Tampa Bay, and Tremaine Johnson from Edison now with the Los Angeles Rams. The NFL can change on the dime, but those guys seem to be a little bit further away.
Yes, they do. I mean, I kind of like the Rams. They're moving to Los Angeles, so Tremaine Johnson will be closer to home. And then the other player on the Rams, which is really interesting, is Rob Wichman, the offensive lineman from Mariposa, who was MVP of our Lions All-Star game just like 5 years ago. So, and now he's in the NFL starting at tackle for the Rams. So that'd be great to see the Rams somehow get in there. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do, obviously, but they're moving to LA, and so that's kind of cool. So that would be a fun team to look for.
What a culture shock to move from Mariposa to LA. Down from the mountains up. Looking ahead to your weekly column, Mark Tennis is a weekly column on high school sports for us. You take a look at some of the top sophomores in area boys basketball, if you could kind of give a little bit of a tease to that and what you're writing about this week.
Well, we've noticed in the recent weeks that there's some very good sophomores in the area, so I thought I would take a wider look at the class of 2018, and the three young men in particular are Andre Kelly of Lincoln, Junior Ballard from Lathrop, and Michael Hayes from west of Tracy. Those three are going to be part of a very good class of 2018 in Northern California. So it's led by Jordan Brown, the 6'10", 6'11" center from Wood Creek, who is the state freshman of the year. And then there's another big-time sophomore who's transferred into Southern California who's going to get eligible, who may be the number one sophomore in the country, who will be in California, I think, once he gets eligible. That's Marvin Bagley. But it's just a very good sophomore class, and the Northern California group looks pretty good, and especially these three from locally are right in the mix and part of it.
All right, CalHighSports.com, the Gold Club membership, all of your state rankings, record books, insider content, less than $2 a month, less than $20 a year. I know you all spend more than that in Starbucks every week, so definitely worth it. Mark, as always, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much.